Who would like to read our objective for us?
Scholars will be able to solve problems by applying trigonometric ratios.
Thank you for reading. So I'm going to give everyone a Post-it note so that when you have a question, you can write it on your Post-it note, and I'll explain why in just a moment. At the top by your name, I want you to write SOHCAHTOA. So last week, you guys figured out the connections between SOHCAHTOA. Who can tell us what does the SO stand for in SOHCAHTOA? Previous to this lesson, we learned about sine, cosine, and tangent, and they were all given diagrams. So it would be based on the information, which ratio would you use and why, and then they would solve. And then the day before, we learned about how to use inverse ratios. And now that they understand when to use inverse ratios and when to use the sine, cosine, and tangent, it's easier to do an application problem.
Cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse.
Yes, thank you. And the last one, TOA. Brandon.
TOA is equal to tangent opposite over adjacent.
Good. So we're going to make sure that we remember those three so we can apply them today. We're going to use APES today. Remember, A stands for annotate, P stands for plan for solving, E stands for equation, S for solve, sure, check it, and sentence. One of the hardest things about trigonometry when you're looking at word problems is figuring out how do you draw the diagrams. And so I'm going to do a think aloud with you. I'm going to share with you how when I read a word problem, the things that I think through and the questions that run through my head, in hopes that when you read your own word problem, you're thinking, oh, well, when Miss Ravin did it, she did this, this, and this. So I'm going to use those same strategies. And one of those strategies is APES, so make sure we follow that closely. During the think aloud, if you have a question, you're like, I don't understand this. We're not going to ask questions during this time. You're going to write it down on your Post-it note. And that way you can ask it at the end. We're going to do one think aloud today, and then you'll work in groups. I think that one of the things that people really forget to do for high school is the think aloud of showing the children how you read the problem and how you think about the problem and really kind of like letting them into your brain of how you do problem solving.
I am standing 30 feet from a building and look up at the building at a 65-degree angle. What is the height of the building? My eye line to the ground measures 5.25 feet.
Cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for information that's really important here. So I'm going to annotate. So your job during the think aloud is to make your paper look exactly like mine. So Sharon is standing 30 feet from the building. She's looking up at the building at a 65-degree angle. And we're trying to figure out what is the height. Remember, we always circle our question. And this is really important. Sharon's eye line to the ground is 5.25 feet. So this is when we get to, we've done our annotation, we're going to plan to solve. Here's my building. So I've noticed that by teaching to the level of Common Core and taking time for focus, building conceptual understanding and pushing for fluency and application of skills, that the students actually have a higher degree of sustainability in problem solving. And so they're able to make connections to things that they've learned before in a way that I haven't really seen them do independently, which is really awesome. Right? Like I want them to be really good problem solvers. And taking time in class to focus deeply on what they really need to know is creating like such an easy way for them to apply all that knowledge in the future. Thank goodness buildings are perpendicular. So I know it's going to be a right triangle. And here's my ground. From her eye to the ground, it's 5.25 feet. So I have this in my diagram so far. And I know she's standing 30 feet from the building. So I'm going to put my 30 feet right here, because that's between her and the building. So I have that down. So now I have to figure out where is 65 going to go. So 65 degrees, it says she looks up at the building at 65 degrees. So if she's looking up at the building at 65 degrees, it's going to go right by her eye. So everyone take a moment here. And please make sure that your diagram looks just like mine. So that's my solving. I should check it. So when I go to check it, I'm going to go right here. So everyone box this part of your work. That's where I'm going to go to check it. And I have to back up to my 64.335. If I plug in 64.335 and divide that by 30, do I get my number here? So everyone do that. 64.335 divided by 30. And snap if you find it's 2.1445. Good. So that's my check, I'm sure. So now I need to write my sentence. And if I can't remember what I've been doing, I'm going to go back to my word problem. My question was, what is the height of the building? So I'm going to write the height, and I can steal it right from the word problem, guys. It's okay. The height of the building is 69 and I think I'm just going to round to the nearest tenth. It doesn't tell me exactly what to do, but I'm feeling the nearest tenth today. In the past, when I've taught math, I've always kind of just kept going with curriculum, knowing that the next objective would hit what they didn't understand the day before. And I think with the emphasis on focus and Common Core, you really have to slow down and really make sure that they understand conceptually what's going on. All right, we're going to work in groups of 3 or 4 today. So you're going to move your desk together like a pod, like a study group. 2 grades today. 1 for accuracy, meaning how accurately can you and your team solve these word problems. And the other grade is how hard you're working in class and if you're working with a team. So I'm going to name team captains in just 1 minute. They're going to make their card look like this. Your goal is to answer all 4 questions by the end of the period. Your goal is to work just with your teammates at a level 2, quiet talking. So in math classes, we always make sure that we teach them one way to solve problems, and that's always having them annotate. So they have to underline the key information from the problem so you can see when they start working, like where did they get that information from? Because sometimes it's as if they haven't read the word problem.
I annotated that Leon is 5.5 feet tall, that he is 503 feet away, and that he looks up at 28 degrees. Oh. And that he wants to know how tall it is at the highest point.
Cool. That's exactly what Ariane had annotated. So now you have to figure out your plan for solving.
You know, that's going to be like the part that you have to add on at the end. So just, yeah.
So this 28 is
Just his
That's
eyes,
this
that's the line
right
going
here.
up. No, that's the line going up because that's the angle you're looking at. It's going up. The 503 goes at the bottom because that's how many feet away he is.
okay. 5.3 feet go at the bottom, and 28 goes.
And you gotta mention that he's 5.5 feet tall on the side of him, because that's gonna come in later.
So this is the type of teamwork I want to see today. Making sure everyone's on the same page at the same time.
Top is gonna be the inside degree gonna be 28.
Yeah, that's going inside because that's how we're gonna be looking at it.
Okay.
All right, so
now
after we
I
do
think
all that, we should label the hypotenuse the opposite leg.
You don't have to label the hypotenuse
So the top is the hypotenuse, right?
because you're finding the
side.
how tall the
This at the bottom gonna
superdome is.
be adjacent, right? 'Cause
Not
The bottom is gonna be adjacent, yes.
Well, you could label it, but that's on you.
We always say.
Because I don't label it because if I label it, I get confused.
So it's X and
I get it, cause it's spelling like after this, it going that way. It's spelled how? Like me, how come
I'm trying to get the answer. So it's on A. So it's gonna be tangent.
Tangent.
So it's gonna be over
Tangent.
28.
The tangent of 28 is 0.5317.
All right. Did you put in cosine?
Yeah, I put in
34?
cosine 0.82903.
All right. Now multiply that by 389.76.
Sorry, I wasn't putting the thing. Please tell me that again.
Multiply by 389.76.
39.76. Where exactly did you get 39.76?
That's the hypotenuse you found in your first equation.
So in the lesson, I think scholars would demonstrate a high degree of fluency if they're able to move right from the diagram to quickly figuring out which type of ratio to use. I think that when I'm walking around, I'm looking to see who is struggling to figure that part out. My team captains are going to collect the classwork. Everyone will move their desk back to the original place. You have 12 seconds to do it. 12. So today's exit ticket is another word problem that does not have a diagram that, based on their practice, they should be able to draw accurately and figure out the right cosine, sine, or tangent to use for it. Now, teams that were working really well, I noticed were annotating. They were underlining key information. They were circling questions. When you go to work on your exit ticket, it's another word problem, but you don't have your team with you. So you need to make sure But you're annotating. So you have 2 word problems for homework tonight. That's on the back of your classwork. That's why you kept your classwork. Please find your exit ticket now. Please begin it. Make sure to put your name and your testing ID number at the top. So after this lesson, I'm planning on using their work from the lesson to find out how much more we need to work on application problems, because we're going to get ready for our unit assessment. So it'll be important to see how they do individually and also in a group, so I can figure out what types of review activities we should do. I noticed scholars annotating who didn't annotate before, so snaps for you. But then I saw some people that had annotated before chose not to annotate on their exit ticket. We always want to annotate. It shows how much we read and how much we understand and where to place everything. When you do your homework tonight, you're looking at the 2 word problems and you're thinking, gosh, what's all that important information? Where is it? I'm going to underline it so I use it in my diagrams. Sharon's column.